This talk was given by Roshi Rafe Martin, guiding teacher of the Endless Path Zendo, a lay Buddhist community in Rochester, New York. Join our practice, in person or online, at endlesspathzendo.org.
So today is Saturday, May 17th. I think this will be the final day show from this new book I have in mind. We may have done it in an earlier form earlier on. In any case, it's who needs or who doesn't need peace of mind. Who doesn't need peace of mind? So, this is Gateless Barrier, case 41, Bodhidharma and peace of mind. The case goes like this. Okay. Bodhidharma sat facing the wall. The second ancestor, having cut off his arm, stood there in the snow. He said, "Your disciple's mind has no peace as yet. I beg you, Master, to please put it to rest." Bodhidharma said, "Bring me your mind. I will put it to rest." The second ancestor said, "I have searched for my mind, but I cannot find it." Bodhidharma said, "Then I have completely put it to rest for you." Woman's commentary. The broken-toothed old foreigner proudly came over 100,000 miles across the sea. This was like raising waves. Wind. Bodhidharma could enlighten only one disciple, and even he was a cripple. Well, John San Long does not know 4 words. Woman's verse, coming from the west and directly pointing. This great affair was caused by the transmission. The troublemakers who created the stir in Zen circles are, after all, these two. So, trouble in mind is a rather standard blues trope, but peace of mind, what is that? Trouble in mind we know very well. What is peace of mind? And how do we find, have, hold, and retain it? Many have tried to do so by opting for such entitlements as wealth and power. Yet the reality of impermanence suggests that may not be as successful an answer as one might hope. Closing one's eyes, shutting one's heart, ignoring problems and difficulties so as to keep them at arm's length outside one's door or beyond your borders also seems ultimately hopeless. At the least, it's self-defeating. What kind of life does such a stance create, hunched down protectively against all that would seem to take away your own supposed due? Where's the fulfillment, the peace of mind, the joy in that? In time, as we all know too well, the big bad wolf comes to every door and blows the house down. Almost every house. What is the secret of that last little pig's house, the one made of brick? What is it about that house that offers security, solidity, true peace of mind? Does it lie in the literal heft of brick, or is that a shibboleth? Seamus Heaney's Glanmore Revisited 5 lustral sonnet says, "Only pure words and deeds secure the house." Only pure words and deeds secure the house. Yet, if peace of mind is what we aim for, there's a step beyond even that, even more fundamental, less karmic. Case 37 of the Book of Serenity, Shoyoroku, offers this. Kuei-shan asks Yang-shan, suppose a man asks you, how about one who says all sentient beings are in a disorderly karmic consciousness and have no base to rely upon? How would you treat him? Yang-shan said, if a man appears, I call to him. When he turns his head, instantly I say, what is that? I wait while he hesitates, and then I say to him, there is not only disorderly karmic consciousness, but there is no base to rely upon. Kuei-shan said, oh, good. Oh, good. Oh, good indeed. This is not only affirmative, but sublimely tantalizing. Might peace of mind lie there? If so, how? This simply presents the chaos of life itself. Where's the peace in that? What is this stunningly nonchalant, all-embracing, oh, good? What is it? How did Bodhidharma fulfill his great vow to free all beings and realize peace of mind? This, after all, is the central point of the Buddha's teaching, the ending of suffering, which means peace of mind, whatever comes. This is so central an issue to all human beings that throughout history, we see that people have been all too willing to sell their souls to get it. Rather than feeling terribly exposed, naked, alone, and vulnerable, human beings have time and time again willingly sacrificed their freedom, independence, even humanity, choosing to accept narrow, foolish, and destructive beliefs and cultishly follow the dictates of horribly flawed leaders, all to gain this precious thing called peace of mind. Just follow, you're told. Don't think, and you will have peace of mind. But ignoring, or trying to ignore, or even simply aiming to stay calm, whatever happens, whatever difficulties may come our way, doesn't actually seem to work. Not eventually, not ultimately. In the short run, it might hold, but in time the dam breaks disastrously, and the world, in all its stunning diversity, comes pouring back in. Still, if you think there's a way to shut down, and in this way avoid such fundamental issues as impermanence and injustice, sickness, aging, death, then please go ahead and try. See if it answers your real concerns. If not, then it might be time to explore this incident of Bodhidharma's meeting with Wei Ke, a man with a troubled mind, to whom eventually Bodhidharma transmitted his Dharma. Bodhidharma's teaching is traditionally said to rest upon four principles: a special transmission, outside sutras, no dependence on words and phrases, directly pointing to the human mind, seeing into one's nature and attaining Buddhahood. These principles differed considerably from other schools of Buddhism then current in early 6th century China. For rather than attempting to add good things like wisdom and compassion to us, Bodhidharma Zen took the radical stance of removing everything, all to help us actually do what the Buddha had done, realize our original mind of wisdom and compassion, the Buddha mind nature that is already intrinsically ours, each one of ours. The house of brick doesn't even need to be assembled. Yet, some 500 or 600 years after Bodhidharma, Zen master Wu Men acknowledged that the task, while sounding simple, might not be so easy. He wrote, "Because it is so clear, it takes so long to realize. Because it is so clear, nothing's hidden. It's never been hidden. It's right in front of us. It takes so long to realize." That's from Gateless Barrier, Case 7. In our time, Leonard Cohen, Zen practitioner, added, "Some people say it's empty, but that doesn't mean it's light. Some people say it's empty, doesn't mean it's light." From the song The Street, from the album Popular Problem. Bodhidharma and his troubled heir-to-be, Wei Ke, shows us how this actually goes. Ironically, Any real quest for peace must begin with, indeed, is most deeply motivated by, a personally honest recognition of our own unpeace. And while we may begin doing zazen with an initial burst of "I meditate, I always meant to, and now I am, and it's wonderful," we can also quickly become disillusioned as we begin to see how truly jumpy, inattentive, scattered, and self-absorbed, in a word, unpeaceful, our minds are. Realizing this is so sobering, it can make us think that our earnest search for truth, peace, and liberation is headed in the wrong direction. Not so. It is simply where we must begin. Roshi Kapleau used to say, in the beginning, it's roses, roses, roses. Then it's thorns, thorns. And he would repeat his conviction that a Zen Buddhist really needed only one article of faith or belief. Namely, that the Buddha wasn't a fool or liar when, upon his great enlightenment, he spontaneously exclaimed, "Wonder of wonder! All beings are Buddha." If we accept that the Buddha knew what he was talking about, we become personally motivated to find out what his astonished and astonishing words mean. All beings means me, but how can I be a Buddha? Such questioning, such doubt is faith in action and opens a path of attention, a willingness to question our own unconscious assumptions, which is the essence, or one way of engaging the essence, of ongoing Zen practice. Like Wei Ke, we find ourselves painfully aware of our unpeaceful minds. Like him, too, we are standing in snow, shivering with cold, desiring the warmth of peace. If the Buddha could have gone around enlightening people, he would have. Compassion was his whole mind. But he couldn't, nor could his last heir in India and first in China, Bodhidharma, do that either. Nor can any teacher. What a teacher can do is point out the way. But we ourselves must do the work. Zen practice isn't going to steer us around difficult questions. If we desire peace, like all the others going back to the Buddha himself, we will have to plunge into the very questions that disturb us most. Why is there injustice? Why greed and evil? Why these wars and climate destruction? Why misogyny, cruelty, racism? Why indeed, if we're all Buddhas, is there such suffering, such anxiety, such lack of peace, such troubles? Why is there even birth and death? Why don't we just walk around enlightened? Even more specifically, why was I born? Why am I here? Why must I myself age, sicken, and die? What's the root of it all? Wei Ke, a Buddhist monk, had read and studied sutras, meditated and chanted. Yet he was honest enough to acknowledge that despite it all, his mind was not yet at peace. When he heard of this teacher newly arrived from India, the land of the Buddha, he experienced an upsurge of faith and set off at once to find him. The result is this legendary encounter as presented in the koan. It is old school, reminiscent of some ancient Buddhist Jataka tale in which the Buddha, in a distant past life, gives his flesh to a hawk to save a pigeon, his eyes to a beggar, his body to a tigress. Here, Wei Ke cuts off an arm. Yikes! What does it take to work with the teacher? Is there something we must prove? How dramatic does it have to be? Teacher looks for sincerity. Is a student acting meaningfully on their aspiration or offering lip service? It need not be extreme. Honestly doing what we realistically can is key. This includes recognizing what's no longer needed and letting it go. Mary Oliver gives us a rich sense of this in her poem in Blackwater Woods, which goes like this. Look, The trees are turning their own bodies into pillars of light, are giving off the rich fragrance of cinnamon fulfillment. The long tapers of cattails are bursting and floating away over the blue shoulders of the pond. And every pond, no matter what its name is nameless now. Every year, everything I have ever learned in my lifetime leads back to this. The fires and the black river of loss, whose other side is salvation. None of us, whose meaning none of us will ever know. To live in this world, you must be able to do three things. To love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing your own life depends on it, and when the time comes to let it go, to let it go. To live in this world, you must be able to do three things. To love, to hold it against your bones, knowing your own life depends on it. And when the time comes, to let it go. To let it go. Cutting off wasteful or destructive habits, letting them go, making time for zazen in our busy schedule is a practical way of cutting off an arm, sacrificing what is lesser for the greater. This is letting it go. In the early days of Zen practice in the West, being young, having fed ourselves on stories of Zen monks and nuns who did wild and crazy things to gain enlightenment, achieve peace of mind, we too did wild, crazy things in imitation of their excesses, like not sleeping more than 20 minutes in an entire 7-day sesshin, or sitting a 7-day sesshin in full lotus despite excruciating pain, or walking barefoot on gravel in ice and snow to stay awake at night during sesshin. Back then, no one yet had careers or committed relationships or children. Well, most of us. Rose and I were married with an infant son when we arrived in Rochester and began formal practice. And so, along with one or two other couples, we were exceptions. Most others were free to live out their fantasies of being like the monks and nuns of old. But most all of us were young and immature. Few yet had lives that meant something even to ourselves. Enthusiastically misguided as we were, at the same time doing some of these things, and yes, even as lay people, Rose and I did them. Such were the early days in Western Zen. We discovered that we were capable of more than we'd thought or been conditioned to believe. In the Three Pillars of Zen, Philip Kapleau, after experiencing intense physical and mental makyo during a sesshin, reports being told, "You are more strong than you know, Kapleau-san." Amen to that. All beings are Buddha. This is no joke. Committing to zazen, to the count, the breath, the koan, is sitting in the snow. Thoughts like snowflakes keep spinning, whirling, but we stay settled with the 1, 2, 3, with mu or hu or other koan, no longer simply drifting. But we don't literally cut off an arm, and the koan is not suggesting we should. We do cut off what may, at least initially, be held just as dear by us. Our me-oriented, self-centered habits of mind and behavior. How? How do we cut them off? Not by suppressing or blocking them, and not by pretending they aren't there to bypass them. No, but by seeing them so clearly, they lose their grip. It takes work. It takes attention, which we accomplish by attending fully to the breath, to the count of 1, 2, 3, up to 10, by fully sitting, by absorbing ourselves in mu or other koan so completely that the habitual self-looping mind falls away, and wind, rain, stars, sun, moon, street dust, traffic noise, the cat's meow can and do walk in. We don't suppress thought or feeling. Instead, we give our attention to the count, the breath, the koan, and let all else arise and fall away on its own. We do it by showing up for the actualities of practice, inconvenient as they may be. In an email conversation with a teacher I respect, who recently in another talk or something of his I read, presented the essence of the way as waking up and growing up, I added in my email to him, I think we need to add to that showing up, to which he agreed. So the Zen path of the Bodhisattva, stripped to its essence, is showing up, waking up, growing. It requires, as all true paths in life must, a degree of sacrifice. The writer and pioneering aviator Antoine de Saint-Exupéry wrote, after returning from flying a reconnaissance mission during World War II that he never expected to survive, he wrote, if we are to clothe ourselves in these higher beings, we must begin by creating them within ourselves. The being of which we claim to form part is created within us, not by words, but only by acts. A being is not subject to the empire of language, but only to the empire of acts. The essential act possesses a name. Its name is sacrifice. Sacrifice signifies neither amputation nor repentance. It is in essence an act. It is the gift of oneself to the being of which one forms part. Only he can understand what a farm is, what a country, who shall have sacrificed part of himself to his farm or country, fought to save it, struggled to make it beautiful. Only then will the love of farm or country fill his heart. A country or a farm is not the sum of its parts. It is the sum of its gifts. It is the sum of its gifts. That's from Flight to Arras by Saint-Exupéry. Or we might add, not just a farm or a country, or not only, but a sangha, or a maturing Zen practice. Yamada Roshi said that the essence of Zen is the maturing of character. Kapra Roshi often said to accomplish a certain goal, you must become a certain person. But once you have become such a person, you no longer need to attain that goal. To accomplish a certain goal, you must become a certain person. But once you have become such a person, you no longer need to attain that goal. While Zen practice necessarily involves a certain degree of discipline or rigor, at the same time, practicing sincerely opens us to raindrops and falling leaves, painful things and happy, angry and joyous faces, trees, crows, cats, our life steps more fully in. This is the point. Years ago, I've mentioned this many times, I think, in a workshop I attended led by poet, translator, and author Robert Bly, a foundational figure in the men's movement. He wryly announced, if you always, quote, go with the flow, unquote, you'll always end up in the bleeping Gulf of Mexico. And he didn't use bleeping. He made it very clear. Going with the flow brings us back, in short, to the same old places we've already had quite enough of, thank you. In Zen, the carp leaps upstream, against the flow to become the dragon it has always potentially been. Trees planted in places sheltered, too sheltered from wind and rough weather, never struggle to get a grip, never twist and turn, so their roots never get deep or strong. Struggle is what makes the tree solid and secure. When Rose and I were on pilgrimage in China in 2006, we climbed up to Bodhidharma's cave, high above Shaolin Temple, descending narrow steps carved into the mountainside. Inside that little cave, a nun from the nunnery lower down the mountain handed each pilgrim a stick of incense to offer to a life-size statue of Bodhidharma in the cave, the very rear of the cave. He had a beard and golden earring, and he seemed to lack only a parrot and cutlass to be a swashbuckling Dharma pirate. Yet inside that shallow cave where he sat, we felt only peace. Bodhidharma didn't seem fierce at all, but wonderfully, vastly empty, naturally and selflessly at peace with all and everything. Out of his realization of vast emptiness with nothing to be limited even by calling it holy, rose a selflessness, a peace of mind so complete as to be uncompromising. When Emperor Wu couldn't grasp his Zen, Bodhidharma didn't stick around to explain and land himself imperial patronage. He simply left. William Blake, in England's darkly industrializing 18th century, wrote, and this I know I've quoted to you before, "What is the price of experience? Do men buy it for a song or wisdom for a dance in the street? No. It is bought with the price of all that a man hath, his house, his wife, his children. Wisdom is sold in the desolate market where none come to buy, and in the withered field where the farmer plows for bread in vain." That's from the Four Zoas. What is price of experience? I mean, how much does it cost? He goes on, do men buy it for a song or wisdom for a dance in the street? Seems pretty likely that most people wish it would be like that. Just do something real quick. Make me wise. Make me experience. Fortunately, it takes one's whole life. It takes constant work. There's a line in Visions of Johanna by Dylan that's very similar. Something about being in the museum. It's this not the correct line, but something, I know he says jewels and binoculars hang on the, bankers' nieces seek perfection, that's it. Bankers' nieces seek perfection, seeking all the gifts that wise men bring. This is very much like Blake. What's the price of experience? Do men buy it for a song or wisdom for a dance in the street? Oh, how we wish it could be like that. We don't want to have to do the work. Make me enlightened. I want to sit down in Zazen, maybe go to a session or so, come out enlightened, and then everything's great. That's what I want. Blake says, no, it's bought with the price of all that a man has, his house, his wife, his children. We'll get to that. It's not that scary, the point he's making. Wisdom is sold in the desolate market where none come to buy. Desolate because there's nothing there. It's completely empty. And in the withered field, everything's gone. It's a desert, not a blade of grass. He's so Zen-like, it's unbelievable. He did this on his own, where the farmer plows for bread in vain. So now let's take a look at this from what he's actually getting at. He's not trying to terrify us. He's not saying you're supposed to leave your job, your family, things you care about and love. But he clearly knew about Waco's arm. Still, Blake is not telling us to separate ourselves from family, work, citizenship, planetary, national, whatever that citizenship means to us, or from our friends. Rather, he is reminding us that to know what's what, we have to at least momentarily release our death grip on all we identify with. All dualistic sense of me in here and everything else out there. That moment costs everything, including giving up yourself for a moment to really live, to really come alive. Because beyond that habitual death grip we have on everything we've identified with, including this idea of me, myself, and I, lies life. Trees, stars, animals, rivers, people. How to accomplish this letting go is what Bodhidharma and Weiko Zen is actually all about. It doesn't come from adherence to words and letters or by commitment to holy texts. All of those can, of course, used rightly, be useful allies. But the realization of peace of mind comes from practice. Focusing on this breath, this count, this koan, this question. This is how we buy wisdom with all we have. This is cutting off the arm. Bodhidharma's interview with the Emperor Wu appears as the first case of the Blue Cliff record. Bodhidharma's I don't know. It goes like this. Emperor Wu of Liang asked the great master, Bodhidharma, what is the first principle of the holy teachings? Bodhidharma said, emptiness, without holiness. The emperor said, who is standing before me? Bodhidharma replied, I don't know. The emperor did not understand. Thereupon Bodhidharma crossed the Yangtze River, came to the kingdom of Wei. The emperor's question, who is standing before me, sums up his puzzlement. He's asking, well, wait a minute, how can you say there's no holiness? Aren't you a holy man? Bodhidharma's response, I don't know, echoes through the century. But hold on, he's not puzzled. He's not saying, duh. He's not admitting, gosh, I'm not sure. I better go and meditate some more and find out. No. His I don't know is the essence of deepest peace of mind, offering Buddha's wisdom in full. Well, times have changed. We don't need to be snow-sitting, arm-cutting Weikas to realize that peace of mind might be a very good thing. Anxiety is us. In addition to the traumas unfolding in our culture and time, our ordinary human awareness of impermanence and death bring us directly to the Buddha's first noble truth. Life as we know it, ordinary, unrealized life, is filled with anguish. The Buddha didn't invent this. He simply presented a clear experience of it, which is one reason that Joseph Campbell calls Buddhism our planetary religion. It wasn't pessimism. It was clear-eyed realism, his first noble truth. The unrealized life, the unconscious habitual life, is going to be filled with anger. 1,500 years ago, 1,000 years after the Buddha, first Bodhidharma and then Wei Ke made it clear that the Buddhist practice realization arising from such lack of peace of mind was not going to be resolved. Let me put this. Simply by study or by amassing learning or by gaining merit. At the core where Zen resides, they showed that it would be a practice of awakening to mind itself, just as the Buddha himself had done. But of course, to be clear, to our own ability and degree. We may all be Buddhas, but we're not the Buddha. Bodhidharma Zen was and is radical in the primary sense of going to the root. Skillfully, he brought the Buddha's teaching of awakening, not just becoming calm, not just becoming learned, not just reading Buddhist books and, feeling that we've deepened a sense of some understanding about things. He went to the root. Radical means really that. Going to the root, he brought the Buddhist teaching of personally awakening and made it down to earth. He made it live right where and as we are. He reminds us that paradoxically, we already reside, if we only knew it, in the very place we've been searching for, and that we're looking out from it right now, and that all we have to do is realize this. Easier said than done. The core delusion, me in here and everyone else and everything else out there, forms the linchpin of our personal solar system, an unconscious, unexamined belief that we are the sun, and all others, like so many planets, revolve around us. But of course, in so many ways, large and small life shows us every day that this is not so. And because it isn't, our little solar system, no matter how we work at refining and polishing it, never spins quite true. The Buddhist term for suffering is dukkha, a term denoting the groaning and grinding of a wheel not spinning smoothly on its axle. That groaning, grinding sound is the sound of our lack of peace. It is the sound of wars, climate destruction, racism, misogyny. It is the sound of our waking up at 3 a.m. anxious about death, about the state of our world, and the well-being of our children. To help us find peace, Bodhidharma tells us we must get radical, go to the root. While his Dharma does not rely on words or letters, it points directly to mind, not intellect, mind. It is not anti-intellectual. Neither Bodhidharma nor Wake were unlearned. And while learning has a deep and vital place in Zen practice, it is no substitute in the end for personal experience. This breath, this sound, this moment, this morning star, this falling snow, this cold night on the mountainside. The koan of Bodhidharma and his heir Waco plunges us into the heart. We are not at peace. Let's face it. We are not at peace. How shall we find peace? No teacher, not the Buddha, not Bodhidharma, can give us peace, but a teacher can help us find peace if we're willing to do the work. By the time he connected with Bodhidharma, Waco was middle-aged. He practiced the Buddhism which was then available in China. He'd studied sutras, sat in meditation, been mindful, given up attachments, performed good deeds aimed at the welfare of others. Honest enough to admit that despite all of it, he was not yet at peace. His determination to find peace makes him the archetypal Zen student. His search for his own mind in response to Bodhidharma's instruction may have taken minutes, it may have taken hours, it may have taken days, it may have taken years. The koan doesn't say. All we know is that his answer, I've searched and I can't find that mind, was the outcome. So let me ask you, how was this the fulfillment of his search for peace? Wu Men's commentary says, the broken-toothed old foreigner proudly came over 100,000 miles across the sea. This was like raising waves where there's no wind. Bodhidharma could enlighten only one disciple, and even he was a cripple. Well, Shan San Lang does not know 4 words. Wu Men's ironic language cuts away attachment to even these lofty ancestors. No cults, please. Calling Bodhidharma broken tooth removes his halo even as it burnishes his legend. It is said that Buddhist teachers in China were so jealous and fearful of this newly arrived teacher's teaching and presence, they tried to poison him, which left his front teeth chipped. Raising waves where there's no wind is Wu Men's version of, why did he bother to make such a big deal over nothing? In short, if we all already have this wonderful mind, why go on so dramatically about it? Plus, if vast emptiness, no holiness is his answer, what's the big deal? How important can nothing be? And he rather outrageously calls Waco a cripple, not only because he had only one arm, so much for grand and dramatic gestures, but because he couldn't even find his own mind. I mean, what a loser! Finally, Shan San Lang, a famously illiterate fisherman of Chinese folklore, still caught plenty of fish. The point? Attachment to words and letters, clinging to them in our mind, isn't necessary to resolve our life doubt or find peace of mind. In the end, words and letters can't tell us why we're born, why we age, why there's suffering, why we must inevitably sicken and die. They're not going to help us catch our fish. However, illiteracy is certainly not the point. Far from it. Not knowing, Zen tradition tells us, is most. But this is not blankness, not at all. Such ironic language is a creative aspect of Zen tradition, meant to free us from attachment to even Zen's founding teachers. Zen won't let us settle down with, oh, how great they were, projecting wisdom, courage, determination, and insight outside ourselves. Instead, inspired, for sure, by those who came before us, we're encouraged to realize what they realized, then go on as they did to help others do the same. Unfortunately, this kind of language can also be misunderstood. Some old teachers did use what we'd consider harsh methods. Even so, in the hands of a skillful teacher, it depended on the student and what could work for them. Additionally, let's remember, most disciplines, most crafts, etc. back then were taught in the form of physically and mentally demanding apprenticeship. Zen, a kind of spiritual apprenticeship program based on personal practice with a teacher, would have been no different. Yet the greatest teachers, like the Buddha, like Zhao Chu and others, were not harsh. I think of Aitken Roshi. There was nothing about it. Yet, in the Doksan room, it was quite demanding, in the sense of being exacting and precise, giving no quarter whatsoever to laxness or sloppiness. The koan's archetype is accurate. Zen practice will demand courage, commitment, perseverance. But while challenging and at times, given our busy lives, inconvenient, it is also, or can be also, transformative. Later on, when Waco himself was a teacher, he wandered among the fish sellers' stalls, tea stands, and wine shops, interacting with all sorts of people. He was no longer up on the lonely, frozen mountainside. Upbraided by establishment types for such unconventional behavior for a religious teacher, He answered all criticism by saying, as one translation quaintly puts it, and this is from John Woo's The Golden Age of Zen, "I do it for the sake of my own soul." He was now down in the busy marketplace and, like Hotai in the 10th and final oxherding picture, using his own unburdened hands to help others. Eventually, Waco was murdered by the local governor for teaching this radical new Zen Buddhism. Legend says that his body floated upstream against the current, coming to rest at what came later to be known as the Second Ancestors Village. Even today, that village knows and is dedicated to the story and teaching of Waco and Bodhidharma. Rose and I, thanks to Andy Ferguson and Red Pine, of South Mountain Tours, along with Sunyana Graf Roshi, abbot and founder of the Vermont Zen Center and her extended Sangha, visited there in 2006, the first group of Westerners to ever do so. The whole village came out to welcome us, dressed in Buddhist robes they'd hidden away since the Cultural Revolution. It was like walking into an old tale, seeing legends alive. Woman's verse, coming from the West and directly pointing. This great affair was caused by the transmission. The troublemakers who created the stir in Zen circles are, after all, these two. Waco's desperate search and Bodhidharma's uncompromising response are on the plate for all of us who now practice Zen. It is because of these two that you and I are now facing the challenges of Zen practice, seeking what they sought and what they found. We honor Bodhidharma for his dedication and compassion. Like John Lewis in our time, Bodhidharma and Waco didn't hesitate to make good trouble. In so doing, they prove that the Buddha way is not far off. And not reserved for special people. At some point, we all wake life difficulties and challenges. All of them. This is our start. To find peace, all we need to do then, as Bodhidharma insists, is to bring forth our troubled mind so it can be pacified. I mean, it's our own mind. That shouldn't be hard to do, should it? Not too hard, right? The final point. Peace of mind doesn't start with the koan, it doesn't end. The real issue, which a koan can only point to, is how to have peace, actually have peace in the midst of the challenges of our actual life, our own living, our own dying, without ignoring the irreconcilable we are going to face. This is certainly the point of the koan. It's the point of Zen. And it's the point of a maturing life, simply growing up as a human. We'll stop here and recite our great vows for all.